What is up, ProGuides family, and welcome back. Today we are releasing our first meta update video. This is different than our tier list videos, which tell you which champions are very strong right now. This video instead will focus on the analysis of what is going on in the current meta, what people are choosing, what items they're choosing, runes they're choosing. So in our tier list video, we'll tell you that Darius is strong, maybe you should pick him, or don't, because I will hate you. And in this video, we will tell you that people are choosing Ignite over Teleport. And that's an interesting thing that's going on in the current meta right now, and that might inform you to make different decisions in your game. If you like that kind of stuff, then this video is for you. And for our question of the day, if you were stuck on an island with two champions, who would they be? Oh God, this is a weird question. I would say Heimerdinger first because he can help me escape from the island maybe, or build some technology. And then I would also say Vayne as my wife, just because she's awesome. And she could also hunt wild boar or something. That'd be great. First up, let's talk about what's trending in the top lane. Quick disclaimer, this is where most of the meta changes are happening right now, so we're going to admittedly talk a little bit more about top laners than most other roles for this particular video. It may seem like favoritism since the top lane is my home, it's just that it's how the game is really developing right now, and we'll make sure to talk more about other roles when the time is appropriate. I'm sure many of you guys are at least somewhat aware of the Black Cleaver Trinity Force trend. Considered taboo because building both would cause lost value in their shared rage passives, players have come around to understand that the lost value alone doesn't immediately topple over a possibility. These items are still cost-efficient ones even without their passives. Black Cleaver is a gold-efficient item without either passive. The Armor Shred is always going to have some form of value, however, but it's not one that you can easily put a price tag on. Some of you might disagree with how our analysts have decided to portray this, but we'll ask you to bear with us hypothetically. Armor is inarguably worth 20 gold per point, so against a target with 100 armor, if you manage to fully stack Black Cleaver, you're making them lose 24 armor, which is 480 gold worth of stats. The point is here, Black Cleaver is a good item, period. Not always the best, but a good one if your champion needs the stats it provides. Trinity Force is also a core item on many different champions, so you definitely shouldn't worry too much about some arbitrary gold value that's lost. Regardless, these two items provide a champion 40% cooldown reduction, 650 health, 65 damage, and all other accessory stats that Trinity Force provides. Seriously though, those first three stats we just mentioned are huge for a 2-item power spike. Bruisers and divers are really the ones that benefit from this combination with damage, cooldown reduction, and health, which make their jobs so much easier. Whether it's 1v1ing, team fighting, or trying to survive, champions like Irelia, Jax, and Garen love this item combination. They make use of the stats ridiculously well and stack up that armor shred extremely quickly. By the way, guys, for those of you who haven't subbed already, why not? Come on, join the sub train. Every new patch, we give you guys rundowns of all the changes that hit Summoner's Rift, and twice a patch, our analysts provide tier lists for you guys to work off of. It can't hurt. Okay, another thing that's going on right now is Nimbus Cloak TP. One effect of the teleport changes is that it now provides players a movement speed buff after it's finished channeling. Kind of reminds me of those like weird home guard plays. You know what else gives movement speed though? Nimbus Cloak. By combining these together, you end up with a brief but enormous speed buff which allows players to maneuver more effectively, or simply run down their opponents to the ends of the earth. Top laners want more agency in our games, and this combination gives us a little bit more of what we want. Every aggressive teleport needs to be meaningful, and this combination really assures that this is the case. You can use this for many objectives, like when you're contesting Baron or contesting Dragon. Finally, top laners are not useless. That feels good, right? Alright, next up let's talk about Ravenous Hydra. A lot of top laners have been rushing this item, take for example Fiora and Tryndamere. Its lifesteal was buffed a couple of patches ago, and an early Ravenous Hydra really does wonders during the laning phase. It's a mid-priced first item, but provides an immense amount of sustain as well as damage. This item provides 18% lifesteal on top of some extra health regen. Also, the biggest thing about it is that you're able to heal off of its AoE effect as well. You get so much health off of every wave, and this item is one of the strongest standalone top lane items in the game. If you're playing a champion that relies on sustain like the ones we mentioned, definitely start abusing it. Blade of the Ruined King is also receiving some buffs. A bunch of players have started building it on champions that didn't see it too often before. Set, Kled, Aurelia, and Renekton have been incorporating this item smoothly into their builds. In Aurelia's case, it turns out to be a situationally superior itemization, and most pros are taking it over Trinity Force. Some champions can get a lot of value out of the item if they rush it. The raw amount of damage output, sustain, and attack speed already make the item a powerful purchase for duelists. On top of this, it also provides a ton of extra kill pressure with its active, which allows its user to steal movement speed from their target. Many popular picks are opting out of taking Teleport now. While a lot of these picks we're about to mention obviously had some players dedicated to taking Ignite or some other aggressive summoner spell, this minority of players has turned into a big minority. In Platinum and higher, Kled had about 16% of his games played with Ignite in place of Teleport. This patch, that number went up to 21%. We see similar increases like this in other champions, but to name a handful of champions that don't like running Teleport, we got Darius, Garen, Renekton, Kled, and even Wukong. With the changes to Teleport, its cooldown has significantly increased in the early game. This indirectly buffed other summoner spells, which can be used more frequently as a result of their shorter cooldowns. In the earliest stages of the game, it's possible to ignite twice within the same span of a single teleport and still have some extra time in between as well. Ignite specifically is also a great answer to all the Conqueror and Death's Dance users prevalent in the top lane. Alright guys, next up let's talk about the jungle. Okay, so the talk about lifesteal items isn't over yet. In the jungle, a new meta is developing where players are now combining a Death's Dance purchase with the Conditioning rune. Death's Dance provides 30 armor as well as 30 magic resistance. Add in Conditioning and you get at minimum 11 more of each on top of that. That's 9 from the rune plus 2 more from just having Death's Dance. 41 armor and 41 magic resist piled on top of Death's Dance sustain and bleed effect make for some insanely tanky junglers. One of the best examples of a champion who you can abuse this with is Graves. When you throw Conqueror into the mix as well, you get one tanky damage dealing boy. Other champions who can also use Death's Dance and Conqueror are pretty much fair game to take this combination. Think like Lee Sin or Wukong. Conditioning as a single rune can have at least 418 value in gold, which is absolutely insane. One single rune worth that much gold is ridiculous, so I'd watch out for this because this might also carry over into the top lane as well. Alright, that's it for the jungle. Let's talk about the mid lane. With all the hype around Nimbus Cloak, there's still one role that hasn't completely shifted over to it yet, and that's the mid lane. A lot of mid laners still prefer to take mana flow band. Well, that is unless they don't use mana. As a mid laner, don't feel pressured into taking Nimbus Cloak if mana is an issue for your champion. Keeping those waves pushed in and having mana left over to wave clear is crucial. As a result, we're not seeing too much Nimbus Cloak in the mid lane. Morellonomicon isn't anything new, but it's becoming a much more popular choice in response to Death's Dance users in the top lane as well as the jungle. The ongoing debate still points to the fact that in many situations, Morellonomicon isn't the most efficient use of gold. However, in the current meta, it's much more often a good purchase now because of how much healing it presents as a result of its newly reworked Death Dance. Even more so than before, healing reduction is a must-buy against team compositions that have a ton of sustain. Especially with how the mid lane meta is developing, a Morellonomicon is becoming closer to a universally good purchase because of the presence of champions such as Katarina, Sylas, Echo, and Vladimir, as well as ones who run Conqueror like Diana, Yasuo, and Cassiopeia. I wouldn't shy away from this item as much as before because the reason most people hate on it is that you're paying a lot of gold for its passive. Right now that passive is quite valuable as a result of the meta, just make sure you don't brainlessly buy it every game. Alright guys, now let's head into the bot lane. Down in the bottom lane, we also see that Nimbus Cloak teleport combination being used. Nimbus Cloak has already been pretty popular for many marksman players as it provides them extra mobility they need to escape otherwise certain death. They can also use it to run down their opponents and secure those kills. Their teleports will now be much more impactful with this combination, but at the end of the day, teleport is something marksman players take for some form of safety net. Even if they get knocked out of lane, they could recall, heal up, and teleport right back. It also makes it easier for them to farm side lanes later into the game, since they don't have to worry about being able to participate in fights. Especially later into the game, this means that it's possible for them to farm in their comfortable homes, aka the bottom lane. Going bottom with teleport no longer means instantly losing Baron when players run teleport. Pro players have been doing this for a long time now, but we felt like it was worth mentioning, since teleport did receive some changes aimed at making it a top lane summoner spell. No worries, bot laners are still using it, guys. Okay, finally, let's talk about supports. What are those? The big thing we gotta hit first for supports is what they're wearing on their feet. Mobility boots are out and boots of swiftness are in. Patch 10.5 was a double whammy as it increased the cost of boots of mobility while simultaneously buffing boots of swiftness. Players across all ranks have made the transition from one boot to the other, just like how fashion works in the real world. While boots of mobility still provide a ton of roaming potential, boots of swiftness had its movement speed bonus increased from 60 to 65. Although seemingly minor, this does have its merit. Although you won't be able to fly across the map with them, boots of swiftness are still going to provide more movement speed than other two-tier boots, and the added mobility during teamfights can make a huge impact. For example, let's say that you're chasing an Ezreal as Thresh. If you were wearing boots of mobility, all Ezreal has to do is hit you with a single Q, and then suddenly you lose 90 movement speed. Boots of swiftness, though, will not let you down in that regard, and you'll have a solid 65 movement speed all the way through. On top of the fact it reduces any slows its wearer is hit with. This added movement speed allows supports to be more relevant in teamfights and skirmishes specifically, and it definitely helps with my Mundo when I'm chasing down some squishies. One other thing we've noticed for supports is the prominence of Relic Shield starts over Spell Thief's Edge. Even AP supports are opting to take Relic Shield quite regularly over it. There are a variety of reasons for this, the clearest one being that Relic Shield is simply a safer buy. You're not always going to be able to maximize profits with Spell Thief's Edge, especially in games where you're under a lot of pressure getting camped, or unfortunately lose your lane, you won't be able to effectively farm up those stacks. The Spell Thieves and Spectral Sickle item lines force you into very aggressive playstyles in order to succeed. With the other two items, however, you don't have to worry about the trading minigame that results from the tribute passive of the former two items. Relic Shield also allows you to execute minions under a certain HP threshold with its passive, Spoils of War. This ultimately gives you a little bit more wave clear as well. If you're trying to push, you can maximize the execute damage, while if you're trying to freeze, you can last hit like normal. Having delayed access to wards is absolutely devastating, and taking a Relic Shield provides a safety net, guaranteeing wards after a certain point. It's also worth noting that if you still haven't finished upgrading a Relic Shield all the way up to a Bulwark of the Mountain by the 15-minute mark, it actually generates more potential gold than this Spell Thief's line. This is because the value of minions increases, so during slower games where you haven't been able to max that item out yet, you'll get a little helping hand to make sure you can max it out ASAP. Arguably, the Spell Thief's line can generate income more quickly, that's not really debatable. In perfect case scenarios though, you're looking at 15 gold per 10 with a tribute passive as opposed to 9.33 gold per 10 with the Spoils of War passive. I'm gonna go ahead and tell you guys that for the most part with these passives, gold per 10 does not matter, and the reason for this is simple. You can only generate 1,000 gold at most, no matter what these passives are. You might get to that 1,000 gold threshold before your opponent, but aside from any 15-minute surrenders, they will catch up. How quickly you get there really isn't that relevant. The next reason is that once these two items have reached their final upgrades, Bulwark of the Mountain provides more raw combat power. Although Shard of True Ice is technically a more cost-efficient item, a lot of its value comes from the mana regeneration it provides. Bulwark of the Mountain provides health regeneration, but by the time you finish these items in the mid-game, regeneration isn't exactly a valuable stat except on specific champions. If we subtract the value of regeneration from both these items, Bulwark of the Mountain is worth 100 gold more than its counterpart. Not bad at all, considering that you only spend 400 gold on it as an initial investment at the start of games. The final thing we want to mention is that support players have shifted back into running Exhaust more often. There's a lot of Bruisers, Assassins, and Divers at the moment, and yes, they have a lot of healing. However, keeping your teammates alive is something just as important as killing an enemy. To counter all the aggressive picks that have flooded the game, a lot more players are running Exhaust. Especially when you want slower, more drawn-out team fights, Exhaust is definitely the move, guys. Some cues are having a tank on your team, having a marksman or bot laner that needs peel to survive, or the enemy team having only one major threat to your carries if that single threat is a melee champion. That's it for our first meta update video. If you guys liked it, please leave us a like so we know that you liked it and we can make more of them in the future. Once again, if you want to get better at League of Legends, you know where to go. Go find your challenger coach on ProGuides. And if you feel like connecting with me personally, feel free to add me on Instagram at @ChristophProGuides. I do some updates and maybe share some cooking stuff. Maybe you find it interesting. That's it for the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Good luck in your next few games, and I'll see you on the Rift.